is a full-on offensive from Putin. His forces moving quickly to gain ground in Ukraine. The Kremlin says it has taken note of Trump's new ceasefire deadline, which is now 10 days from today. Taken note as they are storming Ukraine. New strikes killing nearly 30 civilians, including a woman and an unborn child in a maternity hospital. Nick Payton-Walsh is in Ukraine and says he has noticed a significant shift on the ground. The Ukrainian military leaders who were once confident they would prevail are now deeply pessimistic. And Nick is out front in eastern Ukraine tonight in a story that you will see first here out front.
The space left for Ukraine is shrinking from above too. Lined with fishing nets to protect cars from Russian drone attacks, this is the road to Konstantinivka, one of 3 vital towns in the east Russia is slowly encircling. Extraordinary low-tech bit of invention here to counter the high-tech problem of drones that have redefined warfare in Ukraine. If you live here, you still need to get home, and as we see on this Russian drone footage, the holes let Moscow's smarter drone operators in. One even lies in wait, filming the other drone as it strikes. The town lined with prey. A drone hit this van at dawn, the driver killed, even if its explosives didn't go off. Little has been spared here. Artillery grinding for months. Well, something just flew in over our head there, but again, the more we move around this town, the clearer how more in the pincers it is of Moscow's summer offensive, but still these bizarre signs of ordinary life trying to persist. Tatiana lives on the edge of town and is now carrying her stuff to safety.
Нам некуда уезжать. А вот на Санториновке я была, там езжу собаку кормить, там жесть. Там полная жесть. Там уже все выехали.
Oddly bustling, though, is the central market, where you'll notice locals turn away from our camera. Как сейчас? Нормально? Okay. So people here don't want their faces shown. Sometimes a sign that they're concerned the town may change hands or want simply not to be shown on television. Okay, she doesn't want to be filmed either. The same story, really. And now we've just been told that a drone's been spotted, which may have been surveying the area, so we're told we should leave now. With the drones, for every new idea, there's something newer. And they're littering the battlefield now, this fibre optic cable, meaning that drones can't be jammed and are instead linked back to their controller through this tiny, tiny cord that can extend for tens of kilometres. It is underground where they try to control the skies. Ukrainian commander Vasyl sees many Russians closing in and no new Ukrainians coming to help. This airstrike, a Ukrainian drone team targeted.
Дуже сильно велика критична у нас нестача особового складу. Особового складу, в принципі, майже не підходить на війська. Дуже сильно велика. У нас дуже багато людей, ніхто не хоче воювати.
On their screens, a lone Russian is hit by a drone's grenade, but survives. And shoots at the next one, throwing his helmet as it flies in. He again survives, but another comes and misses him by inches. He takes off his armour and waves a shovel. Isolated, relentless, agonies for both sides.
Ми вже устали. Всі устали від цієї війни. Так само я вірю, що і устали другі державі нам допомагати. Цю війну треба вже закінчувати. Це би було таке моє рішення саме найкраще.
Moscow wants that too, just its ending is yet uglier still. Aaron, President Trump's shortened deadline certainly heightens the urgency in which diplomacy could take place, but let's face it, given that Russia is clearly winning, and winning in ways that could end up giving it a strategic change in its control on the front lines, do you see the Kremlin necessarily, urgently looking for a peace deal? Very few here people think that's going to be the case, and in 3 key areas Russia is persistently advancing. I have to tell you, I've not heard pessimism like what we've heard over the past few days of being here since the start of this war. Erin?
Nick, thank you very much in eastern Ukraine. Such important reporting.
On Monday, President Trump reduced his original 50-day deadline for Russia to talk peace to about 10 to 12 days. Mr. Trump is threatening Moscow with steep tariffs, along with secondary sanctions for countries that buy Russian oil. China and India are chief among them. The president, of course, has set deadlines in the past without following through. We've seen that before. Please join now by Russian opposition politician Vladimir Milov. He's the former deputy minister, energy of Russia. Vladimir, great to have you back on the show. I'm just seeing that President Trump, who's just on board Air Force One, making his way back to the United States from Scotland, has said that the deadline for President Putin to agree to a ceasefire in Ukraine is 10 days from today. So, first it was 50 days to sign up to a ceasefire. Now it's 10 days from today. The Kremlin, meantime, has said, Vladimir, they've taken note of his statement. Do you think that anything will be achieved in these 10 days?
Great to be on your show again, but just as you said, President Trump has issued deadlines before. I think it was also 2 weeks deadline in spring or something like that. What is remarkable here, though, is that he's been in office for his second term for over half a year now, and there was zero action on Russia. So what you could have had is like issuing some preemptive sanctions demonstrating the seriousness of your approach. Why wait? On the background of his tough words, I just talked to one European Union official who said, I have no counterpart anymore at the US Office of Foreign Assets Control, the United States government agency, which is responsible for monitoring sanctions compliance and for enforcement. People has been fired because of the massive cleanup in the US bureaucracy, and I have nobody to talk to in the United States. This is what I hear from European officials responsible for sanctions. Moscow clearly knows all that, so they always measure words against some real action on the ground. And I think it's evident that the gap between Trump's words and real life actions is growing.
I wonder then how does President Putin move here in the next 10 days? Because we've seen, as we've just reported, Vladimir, heavy strikes overnight hitting both a prison and a hospital. It doesn't seem from the actions on the ground that President Putin's slowing down whatsoever. So is there any diplomatic moves you think that Putin can play out here?
My reading of Putin's strategy is that he's got very severe limitations in a lot of resources, manpower, money, and military production, and so on. So I think it's clearly visible that his approach in the past few weeks and months, particularly before summer is over, the weather is still good to continue the offensive in Ukraine on the ground. His approach is probably to use this still available resource to the maximum to get maximum gains. As far as these threats on sanctions are concerned, I think Putin, he's clearly overestimating himself, but he thinks of himself as the master of handling the challenges posed by sanctions, as the master of circumvention and so on. So he's not very much concerned about the new sanctions that may come. I mean, theoretically, let's give it a shot. But he's more concerned about what he can achieve, like before he's finally forced into some sort of real serious negotiations. He wants to achieve maximum possible with the resources that he's still got. So he basically, I believe he thinks about what Trump is saying right now as some sort of a white noise.
Right. So when you're saying he's overestimating himself, do you speak then, Vladimir, to the impact, potential impact, when they come, if they come, of these secondary sanctions? Because as many of you viewers will know, Russia is already heavily sanctioned. How deeply would that be felt, you think?
Nobody knows, as a matter of fact, what these secondary sanctions would be. It's too complicated. It involves third countries, which are very important, very heavy U.S. trade partners with whom the United States has very serious and complicated negotiations on trade deals right now, both with China and India. So that really significantly complicates all the equation. The simpler way for Trump will be to return to Biden's policies of issuing new batches of sanctions like every 2 or 3 weeks, returning to coordination with Europeans, restoring stuff at Office of Foreign Assets Control. But Trump is not thinking about that. He's preoccupied with this idea of secondary sanctions, which Nobody has an idea, it never worked, might be too complicated because it involves India and China. This is, I think, one of the reasons why Putin does not take this threat really seriously.
You don't sound very convinced by this strategy at all, by the US strategy here.
No, the strategy which involved US coordination with Europe and other Western democracies, Canada, Japan, Australia, imposing and maintaining coordinated sanctions regime together, that have yielded a result in 3 years. Russian exports are shrinking to historic lows. Total consolidated profits of Russian businesses shrank to historic lows. Budget income shrank to historic lows. So this is finally, after all these years, sanctions are really producing serious impact. So Trump better return to this coordinating practice, not, waving some non-existent threats which might be too complicated to implement in real life.
Well, let's see what happens, Vladimir, in 10 days' time. I'm sure you and I will be talking again. Vladimir Milov, appreciate it. Good to see you, Vladimir.